The stars looked cold and distant from the viewing deck of the inevitable conquest. Admiral Zachary Campbell stood with his hands clasped behind his back, watching as the last human defense station above New Horizon burst into flames. Chunks of metal and frozen bodies drifted into the blackness of space. He allowed himself a small smile. 3 years, he said softly. 3 years to crush these primitives. Longer than expected, but the outcome was never in doubt. Behind him, his bridge officers worked at their stations. Their skin glowed with the soft blue light that marked all members of the galactic hegemony. They had ruled a third of the known galaxy for over 700 years. Humans were just the latest species to fall before them. "Bring the prisoner," Campbell ordered. 2 guards entered, dragging a human woman in a torn uniform. Her face was bruised, and dried blood caked her short brown hair. Despite her condition, Commander Lisa Bennett stood as straight as she could when the guards released her arms. "Your final colony has fallen," Campbell said. "Your species fought well for primitives. But it's over now." Bennett said nothing. Her eyes were fixed on the viewing screen where her people's last stronghold burned. Campbell touched a control panel. "This message will now play on all human frequencies, across all your remaining settlements. Your people should understand that resistance is finished." His image appeared on screens throughout the conquered human colonies. His blue skin and silver eyes filled the frame as he spoke with practiced authority. "People of Earth and her colonies, your military forces have been defeated, your fleets destroyed, your orbital defenses eliminated. In 1 standard week, we will arrive at your homeworld. Prepare for your new place in the hegemony. Those who accept our rule will be treated fairly. Those who resist will be eliminated. This is the natural order. The strong govern the weak." He ended the transmission and turned back to Bennett. "Your species never had a chance. Our technology is centuries beyond yours. Our ships faster, our weapons more powerful, our shields impenetrable. We studied your broadcast for decades before we came. You waste time fighting among yourselves when you should have been preparing for us." Bennett finally spoke, her voice rough from disuse. "Why did you attack us?" "We never threatened. You." Campbell looked genuinely confused. "You were expanding. Given enough time, you might have become a problem. The hegemony does not allow problems to develop. We solve them early." He walked closer to her. "Besides, your world is rich in resources we need. Your people will serve the hegemony with their labor. In 3 generations, your great-grandchildren will not even remember a time before our rule. They will be loyal subjects." A blue-skinned officer approached and bowed. "Admiral, we finished scanning the system. No remaining human military assets detected." "Excellent. Prepare to jump to the next staging point. We'll allow our supply ships to catch up before the final approach to Earth." He dismissed the officer and turned back to Bennett. "You will watch as we take your homeworld. A fitting punishment for the commander of the Colonial Defense Force." Bennett's face showed no emotion, but her mind raced. The colonies had fallen according to plan. Earth had gained the time it needed. She only hoped it had been enough. "Take her to a cell," Campbell ordered. "Make sure she's healthy enough to witness our victory at Earth." As the guards led her away, Bennett allowed herself a small, hidden smile. Far from the battle, on the 3rd moon of a gas giant in an uninhabited system, a small human transport ship received Campbell's victory message. Inside, a group of colonial military officers watched in silence. "He thinks it's over," said Major Greg Peterson. "That's good." Colonel Diane Harris nodded. "The colonies bought the time Earth needed. Now we move to Phase 2. Send the coded confirmation to Sol System. Use the quantum channel." A communications officer typed rapidly. The message was simple. Package delivered. Shelf life expired. Receipt confirmed. On Earth, preparations had been underway since the first hegemony. Ships appeared at the edge of human space. While the public was told that diplomatic talks were ongoing, the combined governments of Earth had been building something in secret. 5 years earlier, astronomer Olivia Hartman had detected unusual energy patterns moving methodically through neighboring star systems. After confirming her findings, she brought them to the highest levels of government. "They're coming," she told a room full of world leaders. And based on their technology signatures, we can't match them in direct combat. For the first time in human history, the nations of Earth truly united. Resources were pooled, old enemies became allies, and a desperate plan was formed. The colonies would fight a delaying action while Earth prepared its one chance at survival. Deep beneath the lunar surface, Chief Engineer Alan Russell wiped sweat from his forehead as he reviewed the final diagnostic checks on the massive vessel in the hidden shipyard. The ship violated every principle of modern space warfare. It wasn't fast. It wasn't maneuverable. It carried almost no electronic countermeasures. What it did have was armor. Layers upon layers of composite materials, designed to absorb or deflect energy weapons. And its main weapon was equally simple, a massive electromagnetic accelerator, running the length of the ship, capable of launching solid metal projectiles at a significant fraction of light speed. "How's she looking?" asked General Kate Martinez as she floated into the control room. "Ready," Russell answered. "As are the others. 47 dreadnoughts, as ordered." Martinez looked through the observation window at the massive warship. The hegemony relies on energy shields to protect their ships. Those shields work perfectly against lasers, plasma, and even nuclear detonations. But they've never faced simple kinetic weapons of this scale, Russell finished. Their sensors are calibrated to detect energy buildups, not solid projectiles. By the time they detect the launch, it'll be too late to maneuver. Martinez nodded. And we've hidden these ships well. Colonial intelligence confirms the hegemony believes our technology level is uniform throughout human space. They expect Earth to have the same ships and weapons they've already defeated. The element of surprise will only work once, Russell cautioned. Once may be enough, Martinez replied. These ships are like nothing humanity has ever built, nothing the galaxy has ever seen. In the darkness of the lunar shipyards, the dreadnoughts waited. Ugly, brutal machines of war, they represented humanity's refusal to submit. Each was named for a human quality that had helped the species survive countless challenges. Defiance, perseverance, vengeance, fury, determination. As Admiral Campbell's fleet moved toward Earth, making small jumps through space to allow their supply ships to keep pace, he remained confident in his victory. His intelligence said Earth had only a handful of outdated orbital platforms and perhaps a few atmospheric fighters. Nothing that could threaten his armada of over 300 warships. He had no way of knowing that Earth's defense would change the nature of space warfare forever. The lunar base hummed with activity. Deep below the cratered surface, thousands of engineers and workers moved with purpose through the massive underground facility. This hidden shipyard had been built in secret over the past 5 years, ever since humanity learned of the approaching threat. Olivia Hartman remembered the night she first detected the hegemony fleet. She had been working late at the observatory, running routine scans of nearby star systems. The unusual energy signatures had appeared suddenly on her monitors. At first, she thought it was an equipment malfunction. But after triple-checking her findings, she realized what she was seeing. The methodical movement of an enormous fleet, systematically working its way toward human space. "Final systems check complete on the Defiance," reported a technician as Hartman toured the shipyard with General Martinez. "All weapons systems operational." Hartman nodded. 5 years ago, she had been an astronomer. Now she was part of Earth's most important military project. "What about the crews?" she asked. "Fully trained," Martinez answered. "As trained as they can be without actual combat experience. The simulators can only teach so much." They stopped at a viewing platform overlooking the main construction bay. The Defiance dominated the space, its hull dark and imposing. Unlike the sleek ships of the Colonial Defense Force, the Dreadnought was blocky and inelegant. Its hull was covered with layers of armor plating, making it look like a floating fortress. "Have the colonies fallen?" Hartman asked quietly. Martinez checked her tablet. "We received confirmation an hour ago. New Horizon has been destroyed. The Hegemony fleet is preparing for its final approach to Earth." Then Commander Bennett succeeded. "Yes, her forces fought brilliantly. They dragged out the colonial campaign for 3 years. Enough time for us to build these." Martinez gestured at the dreadnoughts. Bennett is being held prisoner aboard the Hegemony flagship. If she survives, she deserves the highest honors we can give. A man in a stained work uniform approached them. Chief Engineer Alan Russell had barely slept in the past week, but his eyes were alert and focused. "The last of the Dreadnoughts is ready," he reported. "All 47 ships are armed, fueled, and prepared for deployment." 47 ships, against 300, Hartman said. "Quality over quantity," Russell replied. "Each Dreadnought carries enough firepower to destroy multiple Hegemony vessels, and our armor can withstand their energy weapons, at least for a while." Martinez's tablet beeped. She read the message and her expression grew serious. "The Hegemony fleet has made its last jump. They're in the outer solar system. Estimated arrival at Earth in 6 hours." "Then it's time," Russell said. Martinez nodded. "Launch Protocol Alpha. Move the ships into position." Throughout the lunar base, alarms sounded. Not alarms of danger, but of readiness. Crew members hurried to their assigned vessels. Engineers ran final checks. Military personnel strapped into acceleration couches. Captain John Wilkins settled into the command chair on the bridge of the Defiance. Around him, his crew prepared for departure. None of them had fought in space before. The colonial forces had contained all veterans of space combat. Earth's forces were fresh, untested. "Status report," Wilkins ordered. "All systems green, Captain," his executive officer replied. "Main drive ready. Mass driver charged to 80% and rising." Wilkins touched a control panel, opening a communication channel to the other Dreadnoughts. "All ships, this is Captain Wilkins. Our mission is clear. Defend Earth at all costs. The Hegemony believes they've already won. Let's show them how wrong they are." One by one, the massive Dreadnoughts rose from the lunar surface. They emerged from hidden bays and moved slowly into position. Their engines glowed softly as they maneuvered behind the moon, out of sight from the approaching Hegemony fleet. On the inevitable conquest, Admiral Campbell prepared for his moment of triumph. Commander Bennett had been brought to the bridge, still in chains. Campbell wanted her to witness the fall of her homeworld. "Sensors show minimal defenses around Earth," reported a Hegemony officer. "A few orbital platforms. No significant military presence." Campbell smiled. "As expected. They concentrated their forces in the colonies trying to stop our advance. Now their homeworld lies defenseless." Bennett watched the main screen as Earth came into view. The blue planet looked peaceful from this distance. "You seem calm for someone about to witness the conquest of her species," Campbell said to her. "You haven't won yet," Bennett replied. Campbell laughed. "Look at the facts, Commander. We have 300 warships. Your colonies have fallen. Earth has no significant orbital defenses. This is not a battle. It's a formality. You don't understand humans very well," Bennett said. Campbell was about to respond when an officer called out, "Admiral, we're detecting movement from behind Earth's moon." "Show me," Campbell ordered. The main screen shifted. Something large was emerging from behind the moon. Then another, and another. "What are those?" Campbell asked, his confidence wavering for the first time. The officer looked confused. "Unknown vessel type, Admiral. They appear to be warships, but not matching any known human designs from the colonial campaign." Campbell studied the strange vessels. They were huge, bulky, with none of the elegant design of proper warships. They looked primitive, almost crude. "How many?" he demanded. 47, Admiral. They're positioning themselves in a defensive formation around Earth." Campbell regained his composure. 47 against our 300? This changes nothing. They must have held back a reserve force, that's all. Primitive designs, likely thrown together in desperation. He turned to his tactical officer. "Send a single cruiser to intercept the nearest vessel. Let's see what these new ships can do before we commit the fleet." The Hegemony cruiser Swift Justice broke formation and accelerated toward the human vessels. On the bridge of the Defiance, Captain Wilkins watched it approach. "Target locked," reported his weapons officer. "Mass driver charged to full capacity." Wilkins took a deep breath. No human had ever fired a weapon like this in actual combat. The simulations suggested it would work, but this was the moment of truth. Fire, he ordered. The Defiance shuddered, slightly as the massive electromagnetic coils activated in sequence. Down the length of the ship, the mass driver accelerated a solid tungsten projectile to a significant fraction of light speed. There was no beam of light, no glowing projectile. Just the silent launch of a dense metal slug. The hegemony cruiser had no time to react. Their sensors, designed to detect energy buildups, gave them no warning of the simple kinetic weapon. The projectile struck the Swift Justice amidships. The cruiser's energy shields, calibrated to disperse lasers and plasma, might as well have been tissue paper against the sheer kinetic force. The Swift Justice simply ceased to exist, transformed into an expanding cloud of superheated metal and vapor. On the bridge of the inevitable conquest, Admiral Campbell stared, in shock at the empty space where his cruiser had been moments before. "What just happened?" he demanded. No one had an answer immediately. Then Bennett began to laugh softly. "That," she said, "is why the colonies fought so hard for so long. We weren't trying to stop you. We were buying time for Earth to build something new." Silence filled the bridge of the inevitable conquest. Admiral Campbell stared at the empty space where the cruiser Swift Justice had been. His mind struggled to process what he had just witnessed. 300 crew members, gone in an instant. "Report," he finally said, his voice tight. "The human vessel fired some kind of projectile," a tactical officer explained. "Not an energy weapon, a solid object moving at extreme velocity. Our sensors barely detected it before impact." Campbell turned to Commander Bennett, who still wore a slight smile despite her chains. "What was that?" he demanded. "We call it a mass driver," Bennett explained. "A very old concept. It uses electromagnetic fields to accelerate a metal projectile to a fraction of light speed. No fancy energy weapons, just simple physics." "Primitive," Campbell scoffed, but his voice lacked conviction. "Sometimes the old ways work best," Bennett replied. "Your shields are designed to stop energy weapons, lasers, plasma, particle beams. They can't stop a solid tungsten slug moving at relativistic speed." Campbell turned back to his tactical officer. "Adjust shield configurations. Prepare the fleet for this new weapon type." The officer looked uncomfortable. "Admiral, our shields don't work that way. They're designed specifically for energy dispersion. They can't stop physical objects with that much kinetic energy." For the first time in his long career, Campbell felt a flicker of real fear. He had led the hegemony fleet for decades. He had conquered 6 different species and never lost a major engagement. Now he faced a threat his technology wasn't designed to counter. "Launch fighters," he ordered. "All ships, evasive maneuvers. Target those human vessels with all weapons." On the bridge of the Defiance, Captain Wilkins watched as the hegemony fleet broke its neat formation. The enemy ships began to move erratically, trying to become harder targets. "They're adapting," said his executive officer. "As expected," Wilkins replied. "But their ships aren't built for evasion. They rely on their shields, not maneuverability." He opened a channel to the other Dreadnoughts. "All ships commence firing. Priority targets are their largest vessels." Across Earth's defensive line, the Dreadnoughts fired their mass drivers in sequence. 47 tungsten slugs accelerated to near light speed, crossing the space between the fleets almost instantly. The results were devastating. Hegemony ships exploded one after another as the kinetic projectiles tore through hulls, shields, and internal systems. Some of the smaller, more agile enemy vessels managed to evade, but the larger ships had no chance. Campbell watched in horror as his fleet was decimated. 20 ships gone in the first volley, another 15 in the second. "Return fire!" he shouted. The hegemony ships launched their own attacks. Energy beams and plasma torpedoes streaked toward the Earth Dreadnoughts. The weapons hit their targets, but with unexpected results. On the Defiance, alarms blared as the ship shuddered under enemy fire. But the thick armor held. "Damage report," Wilkins ordered. "Outer armor layer at 80% integrity," reported the damage control officer. "No penetration to vital systems. We can take a lot more of this." Wilkins nodded grimly. The Dreadnoughts had been designed to absorb punishment. Their armor was layered with materials specifically chosen to disperse energy weapons. It wasn't invulnerable. Sustained fire would eventually break through, but it bought valuable time. "Continue firing," he ordered. "Target their flagship." The battle intensified. The space around Earth lit up with energy weapons and explosions. The hegemony ships fired continuously, pouring energy weapons into the Earth vessels. The dreadnoughts fired more slowly, their mass drivers needing time to recharge between shots, but each shot destroyed an enemy ship. Commander Bennett watched from the bridge of the inevitable conquest as the battle turned against the hegemony. Campbell's face had gone pale, his silver eyes wide with disbelief. "How?" he whispered. "How did your species develop this technology so quickly?" "Necessity," Bennett answered. "You gave us no choice. We knew we couldn't match your energy weapons, or shields, so we didn't try, we went in a different direction." A massive impact rocked the inevitable conquest. The lights flickered and alarms wailed. "Direct hit to our port section," reported an officer, voice shaking. "Decks 12 through 20 destroyed. Shield generators offline." Campbell gripped his command chair. "Prepare for emergency jump. Get us out of this system." "Jump drives damaged, Admiral," came the reply. "We're trapped." On Earth, in the Unified Command Center beneath the old United Nations building in New York, President George Harris watched the battle unfold on massive screens. Military officers and government officials from around the world stood with him, their faces reflecting the glow of the displays. "It's working," said the Chinese representative, her voice filled with awe. "The dreadnoughts are winning." Harris nodded. "We gambled everything on this strategy. The colonies—" His voice broke, slightly. "The colonies paid a terrible price to give us this chance. Their sacrifice will not be forgotten," said the Russian general beside him. "But now we must finish this." Harris pressed a button on the command console. "This is President Harris. To all Earth forces, press the attack, show no mercy. For our colonies, for our future." In space, the battle continued to turn in Earth's favor. The hegemony ships, unable to defend against the mass drivers, tried to retreat to a safe distance. But the dreadnoughts pursued, their massive engines pushing them forward with surprising speed. Captain Susan Wright of the dreadnought Retribution targeted the inevitable conquest. The flagship was already damaged, its elegant hull scarred and burning. "Mass driver charged and ready," reported her weapons officer. Wright hesitated. Intelligence suggested the human prisoner Commander Bennett was aboard that vessel. "Adjust. Aim," she ordered. "Target their engines and weapon systems. Disable, don't destroy." The Retribution fired. The projectile, smaller than the standard slugs, hit the inevitable conquest with precision. The hegemony flagship's main drives exploded, leaving it drifting helplessly. On the bridge of the crippled flagship, Campbell watched as his fleet disintegrated around him. Of the original 300 ships, fewer than 50 remained, and they were scattering, trying to escape. "Order all remaining ships to retreat," he said, his voice hollow. "Save whoever you can." Bennett saw her opportunity. With the ship damaged, and the crew distracted, she moved suddenly, headbutting the guard nearest to her. The alien staggered back and she grabbed his weapon. In the chaos of the battle, no one had been watching her closely enough. "Don't move," she said, pointing, the weapon at Campbell. "This battle is over." The remaining hegemony ships fled in disorder, jumping to light speed whenever their damaged drives allowed. The battle for Earth was over in less than 6 hours. On the viewing screens of the Unified Command Center, President Harris watched as the enemy vessels disappeared one by one. "Status report," he ordered. 43 of our dreadnoughts are still operational," replied General Martinez. 4 were severely damaged but can be repaired. We lost none completely." Harris nodded. "And the hegemony fleet?" "Over 200 enemy ships destroyed. The rest have fled or been disabled. We've captured 17 intact vessels, including their flagship, the Inevitable Conquest." A cheer went up from the assembled leaders. For the first time since the hegemony had appeared at the edge of human space, hope filled the command center. "What about Commander Bennett?" Harris asked. Martinez checked her tablet. "She's alive. In fact, she's somehow managed to capture Admiral Campbell." The retribution is bringing them both to Earth now. Harris smiled. I look forward to meeting this commander. She's given humanity a chance to survive. On the captured Hegemony flagship, Bennett kept her weapon trained on Campbell as Captain Wright and a team from the Retribution secured the bridge. The blue-skinned Hegemony officers offered no resistance. They seemed shocked, unable to process their defeat. Commander Bennett, Wright said with a salute. Earth Command sends their congratulations. Your mission was successful. Bennett returned the salute. Thank you, Captain. It's good to see Earth's new ships in action. They're as impressive as we hoped. Wright nodded toward Campbell. And you've captured their admiral. A valuable prize. Campbell stood silent, his silver eyes dull with defeat. His elegant uniform was stained and torn. He looked smaller somehow, less imposing than when he had declared victory over the colonies. Take him to a secure room, Bennett ordered. I want to speak with him alone. Later, in a makeshift cell aboard the Retribution, Bennett faced Campbell across a small table. The Admiral refused to look at her. Why did you attack us? Bennett asked again, the same question she had asked when she was his prisoner. The real reason. Campbell remained silent for a long moment. Then he sighed. Fear, he admitted. The hegemony has ruled for 7 centuries because we eliminated any species that might one day challenge us. Your broadcasts showed your rapid technological development. In 100 years, you might have matched us. In 200, surpassed us. So you attacked us because of what we might become? Yes. It was the logical choice. The safe choice. He finally met her eyes. Until today. Bennett leaned forward. You killed billions of colonists, destroyed worlds that posed no threat to you. That is the way of the galaxy, Campbell replied. The strong survive, the weak perish. It has always been so. Not for humans, Bennett said. We learn, we adapt, we work together when we must. The colonies didn't fight to save themselves. They fought to save Earth, to give our homeworld time to prepare. Campbell was silent again, processing this. Your people sacrificed themselves for others they would never meet? Yes, because that's what humans do when our survival is at stake. We look beyond ourselves. The Retribution docked at Earth's orbital station 12 hours after the battle ended. Bennett escorted Campbell to a shuttle that would take them to the surface. As they approached Earth, Campbell looked out the viewport at the blue planet. It's beautiful, he said quietly. Yes, Bennett agreed. Worth fighting for. What will happen to me? To the captured hegemony soldiers? I don't know, Bennett answered honestly. That's for our leaders to decide, but humans don't typically exterminate prisoners of war. Campbell seemed surprised. Even after what we did to your colonies? Especially after that, we need to be better than those who attacked us. Otherwise, what were we fighting for? The shuttle landed at a military base outside Washington, D.C. A delegation waited for them, led by President Harris. Bennett saluted as she presented Campbell to the Earth's leader. Commander Bennett, Harris said warmly. Earth owes you and the colonial forces a debt we can never repay. We did our duty, Mr. President. Nothing more. Harris turned his attention to Campbell. Admiral, welcome to Earth. Not the way you expected to arrive, I imagine. Campbell stood straight, his dignity intact despite his situation. Your species has surprised me, President Harris. That doesn't happen often. Inside a conference room at the base, Earth's military leaders gathered to debrief Bennett and plan their next steps. Screens showed the status of the remaining hegemony, forces scattered throughout human space. The enemy is in disarray, General Martinez reported. Their command structure has broken down with the loss of their flagship and so many senior officers. Our colonies? Bennett asked, her voice tight, with concern. Still under hegemony control, but their hold is weakening. The colonial resistance has intensified since news of our victory reached them. President Harris stood at the head of the table. We have decisions to make. We've won a battle, but not the war. The hegemony still controls most of our colonies. Billions of humans remain under their rule. We need to free them, Bennett said firmly. Yes, Harris agreed. But how? We have 43 operational dreadnoughts. The hegemony still has thousands of ships spread across their territory. Chief Engineer Russell, who had been invited to the meeting, spoke up. We can build more. Now that we've proven the design, production can be accelerated. The lunar shipyards are still operational, and we can build additional yards. How long? Asked Harris. 6 months to double our fleet. Another 6 to double it again. Harris nodded thoughtfully. Can we reverse engineer any technology from the captured hegemony ships? Absolutely, Russell confirmed. Their drive systems are far more advanced than ours. We might be able to incorporate some of their technology into our next generation of dreadnoughts. And we have Admiral Campbell, added Martinez. He knows the hegemony's weaknesses, their deployment patterns, their command codes. All eyes turned to Campbell, who sat under guard at the far end of the table. Will you help us? Harris asked. Him directly. Campbell considered the question. If I refuse? Then you'll be treated as a prisoner of war. No torture, no execution, just confinement until the conflict ends. And if I help? Then you help save lives. On both sides. This war can end sooner with less bloodshed. Campbell looked at the humans around the table. These primitives who had defeated his supposedly invincible fleet. These beings who fought not just for themselves, but for others. The hegemony has ruled through fear for 7 centuries, he said slowly. Perhaps it's time for something different. 6 months passed quickly. Earth worked with single-minded purpose, building more dreadnoughts in the lunar shipyards while studying the captured hegemony vessels. Engineers worked day and night to combine human ingenuity with alien technology. The result was a new generation of warships, faster and more powerful than the original dreadnoughts. Admiral Campbell, after much consideration, had decided to help the humans. He provided valuable information about hegemony defenses, communication codes, and fleet movements. Some called him a traitor. He called himself a realist. The hegemony has ruled through fear for too long, he explained to Bennett during one of their many discussions. I've seen how your people work together, how you value each life. Perhaps this is the wake-up call my people needed. Bennett wasn't sure she trusted him completely, but his information had proven accurate so far. What will happen when we reach the hegemony homeworlds? Chaos, Campbell admitted. Our society isn't built to handle defeat. The ruling council will likely fracture, with different factions blaming each other for the failure. In the command center beneath New York, President Harris studied the latest intelligence reports. The news from the colonies was encouraging. Resistance movements had grown bolder since Earth's victory. Several smaller outposts had already overthrown their hegemony overseers. We're ready, announced General Martinez as she entered the room. 70 new dreadnoughts completed and crewed. Combined with our original fleet, we have over 100 ships prepared for the counteroffensive. Harris nodded. And the colonial liberation plan? In place. We'll strike simultaneously at the 7 major colony systems. Admiral Campbell's intelligence suggests the hegemony forces are spread thin, with minimal reinforcements available. What about their homeworlds? Harris asked. That's phase 2. Once we secure our colonies, we'll push directly to the hegemony core systems. Show them they're not invulnerable. Harris sighed. I never wanted to be a wartime president. I never wanted humanity to fight an interstellar war. None of us did, Martinez replied. But they gave us no choice. No, they didn't. Harris straightened his shoulders. Launch the fleet. Bring our people home. The Earth fleet departed the next day. Astronomer Olivia Hartman, now promoted to admiral, commanded from the flagship Reckoning. The massive vessel incorporated the best of human and hegemony technology, the unstoppable kinetic weapons of Earth combined with the advanced drive systems and sensors of the aliens. Commander Bennett, now Captain Bennett, commanded the Defiance. As the fleet prepared to jump to light speed, she addressed her crew. Some of you have never seen our colonies, she said. I was born on New Horizon. I watched it burn. Today we take back what's ours. But remember, we fight to free our people, not for revenge. We will be better than those who attacked us. The liberation of the colonies proceeded more quickly than anyone expected. The hegemony forces, demoralized by their defeat at Earth and cut off from central command, offered minimal resistance. Within weeks, all 7 major colony systems had been reclaimed. On New Horizon, Bennett walked through the ruins of the once thriving colony. The hegemony occupation had left the planet scarred, its cities damaged, its people traumatized. But already colonists were rebuilding. Children played in makeshift playgrounds. Gardens sprouted among the rubble. "Life returns," said Campbell, who had accompanied the fleet as an advisor. He looked uncomfortable among the human colonists, many of whom glared at him with undisguised hatred. "It always does," Bennett replied. "That's another thing about humans. We're resilient." With the colonies secure, the Earth fleet regrouped for its push into hegemony space. President Harris had given clear orders. They weren't seeking to destroy the hegemony, merely to ensure it would never threaten humanity again. The fleet jumped to the edge of hegemony territory, expecting heavy resistance. Instead, they found confusion. Many border outposts had been abandoned. Others surrendered immediately upon seeing the Earth dreadnoughts. "Something's wrong," Admiral Hartman said as she reviewed the reports. "This isn't normal hegemony behavior." Campbell studied the communications they'd intercepted. "It's as I feared. The ruling council has collapsed. Different factions are fighting for control. They're too busy with their internal struggles to mount a unified defense." Hartman made a decision. "We push directly to the capital world. And this quickly." The Earth fleet arrived at the hegemony homeworld 3 days later. The planet was surrounded by defensive platforms and hundreds of warships. But the ships weren't in battle formation. Many were facing each other, weapons active. "Civil war," Campbell said quietly. "The ultimate disgrace in hegemony culture." Admiral Hartman opened a communication channel to all hegemony vessels. "Attention hegemony forces. This is Admiral Olivia Hartman of Earth. We do not wish to destroy you. We demand to speak with your leaders to negotiate terms that will ensure peace between our peoples." For several tense minutes there was no response. Then a transmission came through. The face on the screen wasn't blue like Campbell's, but green, a different faction of the hegemony species. "This is Supreme Leader Krex of the Reform Council. We have removed the previous leadership that ordered the attack on your worlds. We wish to discuss peace." In the Grand Council chamber of the hegemony capital city, human and hegemony representatives sat across from each other at a table made of rare quantum crystal. The space was designed to intimidate, with soaring ceilings and ancient symbols of hegemony power. President Harris, who had traveled to attend the negotiations personally, wasn't intimidated. Beside him sat Admiral Hartman, Captain Bennett, and General Martinez. Campbell stood to the side, his status uncertain, neither fully human ally nor hegemony citizen now. Supreme Leader Krex presented the peace treaty. "We will withdraw from all human territories. We will pay reparations for the damage caused. We will recognize Earth and its colonies as sovereign and equal to the hegemony." Harris studied the document. "These terms are fair, but I need guarantees this won't happen again. Not to us, not to any other species." "What do you propose?" asked Krex. "A new galactic council, not ruled by the hegemony alone, but with representatives from all spacefaring species, including those you've previously conquered." Krex looked shocked. "That would end 7 centuries of hegemony dominance." "Yes," Harris said simply. "That's the point." After hours of negotiation, Krex signed the treaty. As he did, he asked the question that had clearly been bothering him. "You could have destroyed us completely. Your dreadnoughts could have reduced our worlds to ash. Why show mercy?" Harris looked at Bennett, who nodded for him to answer. "Because we're not like you," Harris replied. "Humanity has fought countless wars among ourselves. We've learned that true victory isn't achieved through destruction, but by building something better after the conflict ends." As news of the treaty spread throughout the galaxy, Other subjugated species looked to humanity with new hope. The hegemony's hold over a third of the galaxy was broken. A new era was beginning. On the observation deck of the Reckoning, Bennett stood with Campbell watching the stars. "What will you do now?" she asked him. "I don't know," he admitted. "I'm neither hegemony nor human. I belong nowhere." "You helped us when you didn't have to," Bennett said. "That counts for something." Campbell was quiet for a moment. "Your dreadnoughts changed everything. Not just weapons of war, but what they represent. The lengths your species will go to protect each other, to survive." "That's humanity's real strength," Bennett replied. "Not our ships or our weapons, but our ability to work together when it matters most." The stars continued their eternal dance as the ship moved through space, carrying the promise of a different future for all the galaxy's peoples.